Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Today, we heard a lot of excitement about how generative AI is forcing a transformation in the landscape of data infrastructure, both within Meta and across the tech industry. I feel inspired by our relentless pursuit and dedication to making a difference, from boosting everyday productivity to solving real world problems like data protection and risk management. I'm Manju Anand, and I support the Data Infra Storage Engine team that's responsible for all the behind the scenes magic for keeping the warehouse data organized, accessible, secure, and performant. And I'm delighted to be hosting this fireside chat with Aparna, our VP of Engineering, and Delia, our tech lead for AI. Would you like to share a little bit more about yourselves?
Sure. I'm Aparna. I've been at Meta for about 8 years. Actually, prior to Meta, I used to work in data as well for, I think, 5 years. So I'm a data person evolved into AI in developer infrastructure too. So my teams really are responsible for all of the software components along this whole data life cycle, like all the way from storing and processing and analyzing data into then training infrastructure and then serving models. And then we have teams that are responsible for all of the developer experience that sits on top of both AI as well as software engineering. So we have teams that are responsible for frameworks like PyTorch, that help enable ML developers, both within the company but also industry-wide. And we have teams that are working on software libraries and like Hack and HHVM that also, I think, are widely available externally to the industry at large. It's really a combination of the data and the developer experience and the AI that comes together that makes for exciting times.
Delia?
I'm Delia. I'm a software engineer here at Meta. I started 13 years ago. I have been in data infra all this time. I have always been passionate about AI. So over the last 5 years, I have worked on AI-related infrastructure, including turning up our first GPU AI clusters for recommendation systems, content understanding, and now generative AI.
With what we're seeing now, it just feels like, one of those moments that come by once every couple of decades, maybe once a generation. So I think just across the company, all of us are sort of enjoying the challenges, the opportunities, and solving sort of unsolved problems in some ways.
Aparna, as you said, this is revolutionary and really exciting to be looking at problems that we've not really looked at before. What are you most excited about?
One of the things that I think that's most exciting for me is just the pace of innovation in AI. And, what's state of the art today wasn't state of the art yesterday and won't be tomorrow. And so really dealing with that and growing and evolving with that pace has been interesting for me in many different dimensions. From a technology perspective, I think we're solving problems that very few people in the industry get to see, let alone solve, because we're dealing with scale that I think is somewhat disproportionate. Just for an example, right? Just 2 years ago, we didn't have a foundation model. Today, we have Llama 2 and Llama 3 released in very short amount of time. Mark just announced the other day that we have about 600,000 GPUs in our fleet by the end of the year. And that was a really quick sprint from, a much smaller number a couple of years ago. Our AI infrastructure stack was still evolving a couple of years ago, and now we see a really well-articulated stack end-to-end, all the way from data through AI into the developer experience. And one of the things that I think has been interesting is also watching how we work as teams. Because AI is one of those things where it's not just like one team going off and solving that problem. We've really needed to work across infrastructure. Let's start with the data center. The data center has evolved. We have new kinds of liquid cooling technologies that we're bringing into the data center just for AI. Our networking has evolved because training needs all kinds of interesting interconnected machines, because that's sort of like the underpinning of how training works. So our networking stack is evolving. We've got hardware evolution. We just launched our first silicon earlier this year, which I'm really proud about. It's used for ranking and recommendation, and I suspect that will continue to evolve our hardware roadmap going forward. And we see the software stack co-evolve across data infrastructure, AI infrastructure, all of our underneath like sort of core systems and the developer infrastructure all evolving together in order to solve these problems in AI. And so one of the things that's interesting to me is it's not just sort of the technology stack that's coming together as a fully integrated vertical stack, all working together. It's also how we work within the company. So it takes many people from many disciplines to come together to solve AI problems. We have hardware engineers, co-design engineers, network engineers, and all the way out to the modeling engineers, actually. So one of the things that's been interesting for me is to see how the models are co-evolving along with infrastructure. And I think that's how we get the most benefit, both operational efficiency, but also really gives us the ability to solve hard problems that haven't been solved before. And so if you look at the way that Llama 3 was built, it was very tight collaboration between the Llama 3 research engineers and the infrastructure engineers, co-evolving infrastructure and models at the same time, so we could get to Llama 3 at a record pace. So, so much change, so much change.
I know, Delia, you had a big role to play in bringing all those GPUs to Meta. What are you most excited about?
I think the research and the learning has been just incredible, like out of this world over the last year. Like it's nearly impossible to keep up with everything that's happening in research, in startups, inside the company. And it has really moved very, very fast. Like Facebook and Meta has always moved fast, but this is like redefining moving fast and having everyone, all the teams, the entire company really coming together to push through and build these new models has been super exciting to be part of.
This past year has been pretty wild. We've spun up new efforts, accelerated existing tracks from research to production, while dealing with a surge of demand for hardware. Aparna, what are your thoughts about how things have evolved over the last 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think, one of the largest warehouses probably on the planet, like an exabyte scale warehouse. And we've been doing a pretty good job at creating insights for the business and just business analytics in general. And over the last few years, with AI, we see more and more of data being used for AI applications. And if we just start with recommendation systems, we have newsfeed, we have reels, we have ads, and all of these areas have evolved pretty dramatically over the last few years. And you see a confluence of that with Gen AI, creating a need for increase in scale, increase in freshness of data, increase in a need for more content understanding as you think about products like Reels. And so systems that we need to go build to derive more understanding of our content. And I think the confluence of all of that has created some really interesting challenges and I think enormous opportunity as well. We also see an evolution of hardware, right? We're dealing with a heterogeneous hardware fleet. And so that has caused us to rethink things around how you place data and how you manage data at scale, which I think is exciting. And I also see an evolution of just the applications within the company of how you use AI internally as well, which has caused, I think, a cultural shift almost, where I feel like the silos are a lot fewer now, just both within the company but also across the industry. And I see teams working together in very interesting ways and merging technologies in very interesting ways to go create this new future.
Delia, we heard Aparna talking about Gen AI. What are some of the things that we're doing in data infra for Gen AI?
So first of all, Gen AI required us to add support for new types of data. Historically, we were working with structured data, schematized data sets in data infra. For Gen AI, we had to introduce media, all the way from images to audio to videos and multimodal content, these documents that are interleaving text and images and videos all together. We had to build new ways, optimizations on how we store data, how we process data, such as making video decoding more efficient. We had to build new products for our researchers and ML engineers, from cataloging data to discovering data, exploring data, visualizing data, comparing the data, and creating really out-of-the-box insights for them to make decisions about their data sets faster. Most exciting of all to me has been this transition that we have started from a pure infrastructure team to a content understanding platform where we can build the entire machinery to understand natural language across all the languages of the world, to understand all the types of content, from math to code to very long form text like books and novels, to rapid dialogue, understand what each of these pieces of content is about, understand their language, understand their quality, understand and build various kinds of deduplication and similarity algorithms in order to end up with the highest quality data possible for our researchers and for our models.
Wow, with all those possibilities, I feel our journey is still clearly at 1%. Aparna, in the previous Data at Scale, you talked about redesigning data infra beyond incremental changes. What do you see as the biggest challenge today that requires a redesign?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are maybe one of the unique companies in the industry, Delia, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we are one of the few companies that have a singular data warehouse for both analytics as well as machine learning. And so we're on this journey where we're evolving our warehouse to be able to deal with multiple kinds of, I think, constraints and multiple kinds of requirements. And, counterintuitively, I think having a unified warehouse actually helps us move faster in many ways, but it does come with challenges because we're seeing scale continue to grow 10 to 100x for our data. And we're seeing that along with that scale, we need to also think about flexibility of how our systems process data and use data. And so we've innovated, I think, in so many different layers of the stack. Just last week, we released a new file format called Nimble, which is really optimized for ML workloads. So that's, I think, one of the challenges and one of the evolutions we've had over the last year. One of the other things that's interesting is because we see the pace of AI just continuing to evolve, models are constantly changing, right? We have new model architectures every so often. And so one of the things that we're doing is really looking at infrastructure end to end and developing fully tightly integrated end-to-end solutions, all the way from data centers to hardware to data placement, so we can co-locate data closer to where the training is happening, to serving the models, to our developer experience with PyTorch. And when we not only co-develop all of this internally within infrastructure, but we co-develop our infrastructure along with our models themselves. And so we're able to then find really creative ways around problems because we're building models and infrastructure all together. And I think that's been both an interesting challenge and an opportunity as we've evolved data infra into the world of AI.
Delia, what do you feel is our biggest challenge today?
Some of the challenges I'd like to mention are around the scale of data and the freshness of data. So first, user sequence modeling. This is having recommendation systems learn from all historical interactions our users perform on our platforms. And on product surfaces like Reels or newsfeeds, in just a couple hours, you accumulate thousands of interactions. So if you go with traditional ways of modeling training data and you have one row in your table for each interaction, you will soon explode the storage. So what we need to do is redesign our data structures on how we model these user sequences, maybe introduce flash, maybe introduce indexing, in order to really unlock the power of data scale at a cost that doesn't break the bank. And I would like to mention real-time graphs. In machine learning, each time you find a new source of data, you keep wanting to try it out until you continue to see, as long as you continue to see wins from it. And graphs are some of our most valuable assets. Our large social graph, our large user interest graphs. These graphs are also used for recommendation systems. They are a major candidate source. So because of that, we are seeing significant wins as we move to real time, and we are continuing to invest in this area.
Yeah, we heard a lot about scale, and we can't only think about scale. We need to think about quality as well. A couple of years ago, I feel quality was just one of the design principles, but now it's a must-have to increase our LLM's learning capabilities. Well, there's not enough GPUs in the world to crunch all of that raw data. Delia, what's top of mind for you when it comes to data quality?
Yeah, so you are absolutely right. Quality makes or breaks a model, and we have seen many times in research papers and also in the recent launch of Llama 3 how a smaller model that invests in quality can outperform a much larger model. And we apply different quality algorithms and different quality models for each type of data. So, for example, what's a high quality image? It has good resolution, it is aesthetically pleasant, it has very clearly defined subject. What's a quality video? All the above, because videos are made up of images. But in addition to this is consistency throughout the long duration video, consistency of the characters, consistency of the background, and temporal consistency. And very similarly for text documents or for web documents, identifying duplication and removing it, identifying toxic, not safe for work content and removing it, identifying all the garish content and removing it is super, super critical for the quality of these models, and even more so when you do fine tuning. It's very, very important because there you have millions of rows or maybe even thousands of rows. So every single sample and its quality matters.
Wow, really exciting times. What I love about these events is it actually allows us to peer into what's cooking and imagine the future. Aparna, from a product standpoint, where do you see Gen AI helping Meta?
Yeah, we see a lot of applications within the company, and we've applied it internally in data infra. We use it to generate SQL, for example, and English language to SQL, and it's still, I think, in various stages of maturity, but you can start seeing the early wins there, and so the promise of the technology. We use it quite extensively for coding, generating test cases, for writing code, for complementing what engineers do, and I think we're seeing a lot of great feedback from engineers using these products. I'm also excited about just how generative AI can do slightly more complex agentic things. We're looking at areas like being able to mitigate an incident or find root causes of where, what code could cause a particular issue, and slightly more complex things like that. And there's just a ton of exciting work ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those exciting examples. DJ talked about global impact today, and that made me think about problem selection. At our scale, we need to be really strategic about what problems we solve and how we solve them. So, Aparna, how do we think about research overall? How do we continue to provide the tools to enable cutting-edge research?
One of the things we're all grappling with, I think, across the industry is how do you advance technology at the pace that we want to see it advance, while at the same time doing it safely and responsibly. And I think one of our approaches has been to really double down on open source. So Llama 2 was open source. It's really been great to get all of the feedback on Llama 3 from everyone in the community. And I really see this approach as a potential way that we can continue to improve safety of our models. I do want to say that the open source philosophy is not just limited to our models. We embrace it, I think, across the infrastructure. We've built our AI infrastructure on the Open Compute platform. We still continue to invest in and lead development of PyTorch, which is, I think, the most common ML developer framework out there. And so really across the stack, wherever possible, we are investing in open source. And I think this is going to be a huge lever in how we think about, how we as a society think about how we take these models forward in a safe and responsible way.
Delia, what do you feel about research?
Another area to help research with is data. At some point, not soon into the future, we will exhaust the public data from the internet, which a lot of LLMs of today are using to train. And what do we do then? Synthetic data is definitely picking up. we'll see a lot more of it. And we are looking into building the right tools for our researchers to augment their data and even generate brand new data that follows the same distributions as the real world data.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about how this whole space is evolving is that research is evolving too. Today we have LLMs and like large language models as sort of like we're seeing this scaling law continue to hold up. And so, we're working on improving our data scale, our infrastructure scale, all of that together. But over time, I think it's possible that we see other paradigms of research also start to evolve. We have teams working on world models, for example. We have teams thinking about how the brain works and applying our theoretical understanding of the brain towards understanding neural networks better. And so there's all these different paradigms that are developing that I think are interesting. And I can't wait to see how that will affect our infrastructure, and the corollary is true as well in some ways. It's interesting to see the evolution there.
Delia, what are you most excited about?
Oh, I'm super excited about applications of science. It would be super awesome to have these educational videos so all the kids can enjoy and study math and physics. That would be super, super cool. I'm excited about these AI models eventually solving open math problems that have been open for tens of years or even hundreds of years. And of course, a lot of advancements in fields like medicine. That would be super cool.
With that promising outlook for the future, I'd like to wrap our conversation for today. I really appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon, and I can't wait to see what we'll cover next year. Thanks for tuning in.